This is Internet Marketing. Brought to you by Site Visibility at sitevisibility.co.uk. This is Internet Marketing. Now, before we start today, we've got a bit of a shameless self-promotional, or Site Visibility has. They have recently published the Ultimate Content Promotion Guide. It's their most comprehensive guide to date, and in it, they break down all the content promotion tactics, tricks and tools you'll ever need to help achieve content marketing success. You can download the guide plus a handy printable content promotion checklist for free by going to bit.ly/ultimate-content. Now today I'm joined by Marcus Sheridan, author, International Keynote Speaker on sales, marketing and leadership. Marcus, how are you?
It's a great day, Andy, and I'm glad we're chatting, man, talking about the stuff that I love. It's good.
Excellent. And you're in, is it West Virginia or Virginia? I always get mixed up.
Yeah, I am in Virginia on the eastern side of the state. But I get out to the UK quite a bit. I've been speaking out there a bunch. I do some communication stuff out there quite a bit too. And so happy to be talking with your audience.
Fantastic.
Wherever they may be.
Oh, well, they're all over the world, apparently.
Of course,
yes. UK, Australia, US. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I've got the best job in the world. I own 3 different companies. One of them is Marcus Sheridan International, and that allows me to travel the world and to speak and to talk with businesses, big and small, and to help them to become the most trusted voice in their space. The reason why I have this job is because I started off as a pool guy, and we'll probably get into that story in just a minute, but I have right now, I almost lost my swimming pool company, and we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world because of some stuff that I did right on the internet that ended up being pretty innovative. And that opened me up to this world of speaking. And I have an agency today too, where we apply these principles that we'll be talking about today, specifically They Ask You Answer. We apply them to companies, B2B, B2C, really, as mentioned, all over the world. And it's a great job because you get to watch them grow and experience financial peace. And I think fundamentally we're all looking for that, right? I mean, that's why we're talking about search or internet marketing, all these things, is we want to experience financial peace in our lives. Yeah. And so that's what I get to do. It's a great gig, my friend. Fantastic.
Now, because you wrote this book, didn't you? They Ask You Answer. Is that the only book you've written, or you've written some others as well, have you?
Well, that's the only sales marketing book that I've written. I've got a video book coming out in 2019, and so I'm excited about that. And there's a bunch more on the horizon, but yeah, that was the first one, and it's done really well. It's done really well, and it's really neat to watch how it's doing arguably better today than when it launched. And I think that's because it's just got legs. Businesses are starting to realize, wow, this philosophy of They Ask You Answer, it could work for me too.
I was going to ask you where that philosophy came from, actually, and sort of what does it entail?
So it's pretty cut and dry, man. So I started a swimming pool company in 2001, and we were installing in-ground swimming pools. That's what we were doing here in the U.S., in-ground fiberglass swimming pools. Yeah, things were going okay until the economy collapsed in 2008, 2009, at which point we were very close to losing the business. And in fact, I talked to 3 consultants and all said the same thing: Marcus, you should file bankruptcy. But the problem was, if I filed bankruptcy, I was going to lose my home. My 2 business partners were going to lose their homes. My 16 employees at the time would have lost their jobs. And so I had to figure out a way how to get back over that edge that we were going over. I didn't have much time. I didn't have much money. And that's when I started to read about the internet, and I could see where things were headed. Yeah. And I was reading these fancy phrases like inbound marketing and content marketing and blogging and all these things. But what I heard in my simple pool guy mind, if you will, Andy, is, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions, good, bad, and ugly, and you're willing to address them on your website through text, through video, you just might save your company. And so that's exactly what happened. Is we literally obsessed over those customers' questions. And we ended up addressing all the questions that none of the businesses had wanted to address because they wanted to instead be the ostrich with their head in the sand and not talk about the stuff that buyers, consumers really care about, which is most businesses, unfortunately. And so because we did that, that's how we became essentially the Wikipedia of pools and the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world.
I've watched a few of your videos, and I must say I'm very impressed with your talking style. I hope I'm not insulting you, but you reminded me of the Tony Robbins of the internet marketing world.
Well, I appreciate that, and I tell you what, there is it's a special time to have a business. It's a special time for opportunities, and if we're really just willing to look in the mirror and say, okay, how am I evolving as a buyer? Like, what do I want to see when I go to a website? What do I want to feel? What do I want to learn? What are the questions that I'm asking? How do I prefer to buy today? What does frictionless look like to me as a consumer, as a buyer? It's so fun. I mean, Andy, we overcomplicate so much of this stuff. And because of that, we get left behind. It's those that simplify it and can look in the mirror. And at the opposite end of that, the ones that fail, it's twofold. The ones that fail to crush it online are the ones that sit there and say all day long, but we're different and that wouldn't apply to my business. That is the worst mindset that crushes more businesses in the digital age than anything else. It's really, really sad. And I think the second issue is they don't have the ability to be empathetic. In other words, think like the buyer, like the prospect, because they've been in the business so long, they've forgotten what it's like to have questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns. And because of that, they can't put themselves in the shoes of the buyer, and their content doesn't resonate. And that's prolific as well.
So I was just wondering, because you've got this notion of answering clients' questions, because clients do have a lot of questions, don't they? And being a sort of source of knowledge. I'm just wondering what the other sort of subjects are that might sort of, move the needle most with digital, that most companies are afraid to ask. Because you mentioned about companies being afraid to ask about these things.
That's right. So we have found in every industry, without exceptions here, there's essentially 5 subjects that move the needle. 5 subjects that move the needle in terms of every buyer wants to research these 5 things before they before they engage with the company, before they buy the product, before they hit the buy button, before they walk into the store, before they contact the company. 5 things. There are no exceptions to this. And here are the 5 things. And what's funny about this is these are the 5 that impact search the most and that can impact social the most. But again, most companies don't like to talk about them. Number 1, everybody's obsessed with cost, price, rates, etc. They want to understand how much is the thing going to cost, not just the number, all the factors that go into driving the cost up, keeping it down, etc. That's number 1, cost. Number 2, whenever we're serious about buying something, we want to know what are the negatives, the problems, the issues with it. In other words, if I purchase this thing, this product, this service, how could it blow up in my face? And in every industry, there are negative questions that are asked. So like, in other words, with a swimming pool, a fiberglass swimming pool, that might be, so is it true that fiberglass pools crack? Do fiberglass pools pop out of the ground? Do fiberglass pools look cheap? Are fiberglass pools ugly? Every single one of these questions have merit and are relevant, okay?
Yeah.
Number 3, comparison-based questions. We as buyers, psychologically, we've gotten to the point where we feel like we have to compare before we make a decision. Otherwise, we haven't done our due diligence. And so we're prolific with versus-based and comparison-based and pros-cons-based questions. And most businesses do not like to talk about those. Another silly example would be for pools, that would be fiberglass versus concrete pools, which is better, or concrete versus fiberglass versus vinyl liner in-ground pools. There's a million and one of these in the swimming pool space. There's a million and one of them in your industry as well if you're listening, especially if you're listening to your customers. Number 4 of the big 5 is reviews. We're obsessed with reviews. We're obsessed with researching what people are saying, positive and negative, about products and services. And finally, number 5, we're obsessed with researching the best. We love to know what the top of the totem pole is, because then we can work against that, right? So in other words, best in my space might be, what is the best swimming pool shape for my backyard? Or who is the best fiberglass pool manufacturer? Or what is the best type of in-ground swimming pool? These are very common questions, and what's wild and crazy is businesses don't like to talk about them, and because of that, there's major opportunity, text and video, with all of these, what we call big five.
What's really interesting there, Marcus, is that I think that the middle three, you were talking about sort of like negative problems and issues and things, and you're talking about comparison, and you're talking about positive and negative reviews. What's the best way in your experience of a business owner handling those sort of queries?
Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
You openly talk about it through text, through video. And so let me give you a really quick example. Okay, this will make you chuckle. So remember, our philosophy was they ask, you answer. So this was about 7, 8 years ago when I was still a pool guy. Because today I don't sell pools. I still own the company, but I'm busy traveling the world.
Sure, yeah.
And giving these speeches, and it's just so fun. And so I was selling pools, and one night I had met with this couple in Richmond, Virginia. And at the end of the appointment, they said to me, Marcus, we like you. We think we want to do business with you. But if we don't do business with you, is there anybody else that you might recommend? Of course, I thought to myself, man, I hate this question. And I didn't sell the pool that night, but I did have a long drive home, and I thought to myself, well, they asked the question, which means I need to answer it. So I went home that night, and I wrote an article which says, who are the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia, reviews/ratings? And I came up with a list of 5 of the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia. And I talked about each one of them. Now, I didn't inject any opinions. I didn't say anything negative, but I essentially just said, here are 5 companies that have a solid in-ground pool building history in the Richmond, Virginia area. Now, because I did that, it's crazy. That one single article, since the day it was written, because what's crazy about it is now, if you search for best pool builders, Richmond, Virginia, generally we're the first one you're going to see. But also, if you search for my competitors' names plus the words reviews, I rank for most of my competitors. The idea is that if anybody is searching any of my competitors, especially for review-based phrases, I want to be the one they learn from. And I don't need to say anything negative about them. I just want to hold the conversation on my court, in my house, and I want to jump in front of that conversation and draft it essentially so that I can introduce myself to that person, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just one example of the way that I've done this, and I've done it in a multiplicity of ways because, again, I was so obsessed with listening to the questions. I didn't care the fact that nobody had ever taught me that. I mean, like to this day, people are saying, you can't talk about your competitors openly. Of course you can. And you don't even have to say anything negative about them. I wouldn't even recommend it. But you should be openly addressing the difference between your products and their products, your company and their companies, because if people are asking you, it means they're also asking the internet, they're searching it, and we've got to get in the front end of this. That's how we own the market. That's how you become the Wikipedia of your space.
You mentioned there about videos, and I love video. I've been into video for quite a few years now. I'm just wondering how this applies to video, especially sort of going forward. What types of video are best for sort of getting a message across in your experience?
Oh, man. So 2 years ago, we started this process with clients where I said, you know what, is it possible to teach companies how to be great at video, create a culture of video in-house? And see, what you typically have, Andy, is you have these production companies and they just produce videos for you. And so you hire them and you spend a ton of money on them and you have 6 videos to show for it, and then you don't have any more budget for it until next year. So I said, that's not viable. I mean, it's obvious it's not viable for most companies. I mean, we have seen that the tipping point, the minimum amount of videos that you can be creating as a company to be extremely viable in the marketplace today, from a visual perspective, worst case is 50, preferably 100 a year. Okay, that's really the bar. You got to be at 100. 50 is the low bar. Okay?
So 1 to 2 a week.
Yeah, you got to be there. So you got to start to do these in-house. And so we started to experiment with teaching all these principles of how to establish that as a culture and what types of videos move the needle from a sales and marketing perspective. And there's definitively a group that move the needle more than anything else. So similar to the big 5 that you have with your textual content, we have what we call the selling 7 with video. There's 7 types of videos that really move it. And I'll just address a couple of them here, not all of them. One of them is what we call the 80% video, and this is the most significant. And so if you think about any product or service that you sell, if somebody calls you, contacts you, you meet with somebody about that product or service, and they ask you a set of questions. Well, what percentage of those questions are essentially the same questions every single time?
Yeah.
Well, the answer is in almost every single industry, it doesn't matter, roughly 80%. In other words, people continue to ask you the same questions over and over again about that product or service that you sell. And so here's what you do. You brainstorm those questions, and you choose the top 7 most repeated. I find 7 is a really good number. And you create one video that addresses all 7. Now, could you create individual videos that address all 7? Yes, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But you want one that you integrate into the sales process. That way you know if somebody contacts you, if you get a lead about that particular product or service, immediately you send them that video and it addresses those major 7. And now if you meet with that person or if they call you, you've already eliminated 80% of their questions. And not only do they know the 80% of the answers, but they've heard it from you, they've seen you, and they feel like they know you. Yeah. And so they're dramatically further down the sales funnel. All right, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That's number 1.
Yes.
Here's another simple one that everybody can do. If you're listening to this right now, daggone, I want you to do this tonight. And that is videos on landing pages are exceptional. And when I say a landing page here, I'm just really talking about any place on your website where somebody will fill out a form to give you their information. Now, there's 4 major fears that people experience when they give you their information online, like their name or their email, their phone number, which is number 1, what are you going to do with this information, right? Privacy. Number 2, are you going to call me to death? Number 3, are you going to spam me to death? And then number 4, what is this process going to look like if I do fill out this form? And so here's what you want to do. You want to create a video. You want to put it right next to the form. And here's the thing. You've got to have a very visible title where they can see the title of the video. And the title would be something like this. See exactly what will happen if you fill out this form, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Do not overcomplicate it because that's exactly what they're thinking. They ask, you answer. Now here in the video, it would sound something like this, Andy. So you're sitting there right now and you're saying to yourself, should I fill out this form? Are you guys going to like spam me to death? Are you going to call me over and over again? Relax, relax. Let me explain exactly how this process is going to go, okay? Then you give the video and everybody's hunky-dory. This is what we found. On average, the conversion lift for that landing page or that form is 80%. We've had cases that were 150%. That's ballistic. If you had 150% lift on any of your conversion forms on your website over the next year in 2019, what type of impact is that going to have on your business? Yep, it's going to be nutters, which is exactly why you need to make sure you do that. So those are the 2 that I would most strongly recommend that you immediately get done.
Well, Marcus, thanks so much for coming on and giving us all these tips. If you could distill down into one thing that our sort of listeners can sort of go away thinking about, what might it be?
Just go back and brainstorm every question you get about your products and services. Okay, if you sell a ton of products, just choose the top products in terms of that generate you the most revenue. So brainstorm them and literally address every single one. Focus on the questions, the fears, the worries, the concerns, and the issues. And make that your editorial calendar of content over these next 3 or 6 or 12 months through text, through video. If you do that, it's going to make you very unique and certainly more trusted than anybody else in your space.
Oh, Marcus, thanks so much for that. How can our listeners find out more about you?
Well, it's simple to find me, Marcus Sheridan, SHERIDAN.com. You can find me on the Twitters at The Sales Lion, or you can just email me. How about that? Marcus at MarcusSheridan.com. If you have any questions at all, I'm happy to have that one-on-one email conversation with you because I love helping people.
Thanks, Marcus. And thanks for listening, everyone. The show notes are in the usual place, sitevisibility.com/1 IM podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review. If you've got questions and suggestions, the email is podcast@sitevisibility.co.uk. You can tweet at Site Visibility. And don't forget, we have a Site Visibility group on LinkedIn. So that's all from me, Andy, and it's all from Marcus.
Yeah, that's it from me, brother.
Thanks, Marcus, and we'll see you next time on Internet Marketing.